Michael Wood is known to millions for his engaging and innovative television presence. His distinctive approach draws viewers seductively into his subject, informing, entertaining, and enthusing, but never patronizing. He leaves us anxious to learn more with his exceptional blend of entertainment and education. From very early in his life, Michael was fascinated by history. His family had a vivid oral history tradition, and in early life his ears rang with stories of Uncle Sid, who ran away to sea, and great Uncle Eddie's experiences on the Somme. A Mancunian by birth, and he says, a Mancunian by character, Michael grew up in parts of the city that have a fearsome reputation today, but which even then were not a hotbed of academic excellence. He was the first in many years to move on from his primary school to Manchester Grammar. Once in the grammar school environment, however, he bloomed. His interest in history grew, and he also discovered a burgeoning fascination with and talent for drama. These twin themes were to set the pattern for the rest of his life. At the tender age of 11, he saw an item on BBC Look North, which presented the story of a battle in the Wars of the Roses in a new way. With characteristic forwardness, he wrote immediately to the producer, asking for a copy of the script, which he carried reverently around with him, studying its nuances in every spare moment. Already, he was forming a vision of how broadcasting was to change as it matured over decades to come, and thinking how he might be part of that. His fascination with the Anglo-Saxon period began at school, stopping off at the Manchester Library to read the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles on his way to another of his loves, football. By the sixth form, he'd begun work on his big book about the Anglo-Saxons. He's determined to complete it sometime soon, though of course there's been no shortage of other publications in the meantime. His obvious talents gained him a scholarship to Oriel College, Oxford, reading history. Despite his fascination with the subject, he found the traditional academic approach less than exciting, so he spiced his degree with a good dose of English literature. Drama played a huge part in his student life. He had been inspired by trips to Stratford while still at school, and his obsession with Shakespeare has not abated. As a student, he toured the USA with the production of Midsummer Night's Dream, and he continues his association with Stratford to this day. Michael flirted with the idea of a pure academic career, but that wasn't for him, and he joined the BBC as a television journalist, where he learned his presenting skills through the hard graft of regional reporting. He moved to Leeds, and then came the golden opportunity to make a programme about the Anglo-Saxons. This received immediate and clamorous acclaim from audiences and critics, and provided the springboard to a lifetime of programmes that are so familiar to us all, numbering well over 80 and still counting. Great railway journeys drew us all into mysterious and varied landscapes and left us dreaming of running away from our desks to explore the world. The successor, Great River Journeys, was awarded a BAFTA. We've also been able to explore the past through journalistic eyes in a range of historical series. The recurring theme is Anglo-Saxon England, but we've also learnt, amongst others, about the Trojan War, Alexander the Great, Conquistadors, India, and returning to Michael's other love, Shakespeare. Throughout, Michael's screen presence and his handsome looks and trademark casual dress has sustained a host of fans attracted by more than just the history. Michael's work is particularly popular in the USA, with frequent exposure on public broadcasting and other networks, and his series Legacy is one of his most frequently broadcast documentaries on US TV. In many cases, his series have spawned books, clearly written and beautifully illustrated, keeping the ideas alive for long after transmission, and ensuring Michael's reputation as an author as well as a broadcaster. In the way of broadcasting, Michael became part of a production company named Maya, after the goddess of illusions, which has allowed him to follow his interests in a wide variety of directions. He developed an interest in Iraq, making a film on Saddam's killing fields. He has inevitably travelled widely and is well known in many countries, though recently he was to be found in the local village of Kibworth, just 10 miles from here, telling the story of England through the history of a single small community. He fascinated us all as he drew today's local population skillfully into the mysteries of their community's past, with the help of academics from this university. He made those of us who live in and around Kibworth realise that history is all about us, and all we have to do is look. Over a lifetime of broadcasting, Michael Wood has made a massive contribution, but there's clearly more to come. He's not lost his obsession with the Anglo-Saxons, and the story of King Athelstan is still fully to be told. We look forward to many further delights. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, on the recommendation of Senate and Council, I present to you Michael David Wood, that you may confer upon him the Honorary Degree of Doctor of Letters.
I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Letters and welcome you among us. Many congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice-Chancellor, Lord Mayor, members of the university, parents and friends. Thank you very much for this great honour. It's a real honour and a real pleasure to receive this from this university. All the more so because I've actually had a long and creative working relationship with Leicestershire for very many years now. I actually filmed up here in Leicestershire on my very first day of filming for the first film I ever made for the BBC, which scarily was about 30 years ago. And looking after the Mercians. And strangely enough, we ended up at the Coach and Horses in Kibworth. And I can remember sitting there watching the lorries stream past on the A6 and turning to the director and saying, I could never make a film here. How wrong can you be? Later, I have the most vivid memory of a wonderful film that we made with the Caribbean community here in Leicester, the Barbudans, the community from Antigua and Barbuda, with the Beezers and the Porters and the Teagues in the Barbudan Centre in Leicester. Absolutely magical film, which I'm hoping to do some more on soon. And only very recently, when we made the story of India, the Sikh community here in Leicester helped us out at the Golden Temple at Amritsar. So, and I think those three stories give you a sense of the wonderful rich cultural and social variety in Leicestershire, and in particular the city of Leicester. That's why we're kind of drawn to it, and especially we historians are drawn to it. So not surprisingly, it was to Leicester that we turned when we were thinking about this idea that I've been nursing for a very long time, which was to tell the story of England through one village, which we did in Kibworth. Big change, some of my friends remarked, from the tropics and the Khyber Pass and all that stuff to the A6. But it turned out to be just as wonderful an experience. Just as wonderful an experience. I can remember doing the story of India, sitting at a little chai stall at dawn in a little town on the banks of the Ganges as cows sauntered past, and saying to the cameraman, you couldn't beat this. And sure enough, I think at Mary's Delicatessen one dawn in Kibworth, we said the same thing. We spent about a year up there, more than a year up there actually, and coming up on the train, I felt, well, almost withdrawal symptoms for the journey up to Leicester, to be quite honest, and withdrawal symptoms too for the people of Leicestershire who helped us do this series in Kibworth. The villagers in Kibworth, the old land girls like Betty Ward and Rose Holyoke, the school caretaker, Wayne, who when Turry King in the genetics department here in the university did his DNA, they discovered he might have Viking DNA. From then on, Wayne walked around the village going, I'm Wayne the Dane. And of course, Of course, the Daily Mail didn't pass up on that one, and they had him in a horned helmet on a double-page spread in no time at all. But not just the people, but the institutions here, the Record Office, the museums, the wonderful Guildhall here, which I hope all you graduates have visited and will visit before you leave. And of course the university, several of whose departments helped us in the making of these films: local history, naturally, archaeology, and genetics. And the relationship hasn't stopped. Rebecca, who produced and directed these films, and I were back up in Kibworth a couple of weeks ago doing a presentation to the village talking about the project. They'd just received a Heritage and Lottery Fund grant, £60,000, to continue the interest in history in the locality. And only last week we were filming with the archaeologists of the university out at that wonderful dig at Borough Hill with university archaeologists and volunteers and a great crowd of about 20 students from Riverside and Lancaster Boys and Countess Thorpe, of all different origins, but all of them having a whale of the time on that dig. And what a great way it is to teach youngsters history as well. But I have to say, before I conclude, that my debt to the university actually goes very much further back than even all this. It goes back to the time that I too was at school and the time I too was a student. And it started with watching somebody on TV, funnily enough. In the late 60s and early 70s, there were a great series of TV shows by the late, great Bill Hoskins. Now, Bill Hoskins was the first professor here in the pioneering department of local history, not just pioneering in Britain, but pioneering in the world. Leicester University led the way in that. Bill Hoskins had been led here to Leicester by Frank Attenborough, who ran the college here in the 30s, David Attenborough's dad. In fact, Frank took all the photos for Bill's books. But Bill did these wonderful shows on TV, One Man's Landscape, The Making of the English Landscape, one of the greatest books on British history. Inspirational, foundational texts for ways of seeing our history, not from the top down, from the rulers down, but from the bottom up, the people's story of history, where the landscape is a living, changing organism. The patterns of settlement, ordinary people's lives teased out of house inventories and wills and court rolls. Hoskins was a great inspirer and, of course, left a great legacy here in with his successors, Charles Fithian Adams, to whom I went when I first was thinking about the Kibworth project, Chris Dyer, who actually helped us in that project and is helping us in our next one. These have influenced the writing of history in Britain and much further afield. So there is a sense in which the university here has been an inspiration behind a lot of my 100 or so films, and not just in the UK either. So I hope you can see why I'm particularly delighted to receive this honour from this university. Finally, as the Vice-Chancellor said, this is a time when the humanities are under threat. Indeed, higher education for ordinary working people in Britain is under threat. These are difficult times, and as the Vice-Chancellor said, it is time to keep our nerve. All I want to say is three things. First of all, never doubt that a university education is worthwhile. It'll sound corny to quote the great Bob Marley, but it's about emancipating our minds from mental slavery. They're great words. We should never forget it. He put it much better than I ever could. Secondly, don't forget that in whatever way we do, and in whatever way we work, in however small a way, we're not only working for ourselves, but we're working for the public good. That's an important thing, it seems to me, to hang on to in these times. Finally, don't forget that it's your passions that have brought you here to this great convocation today. It's your passions that have taken you this far. And even if your life and your work leads you somewhere else, maybe somewhere unexpected, don't forget your passions, because those will feed you all the way through your life. So the very best of luck to my fellow graduates today in wherever your adventures will lead you in life. Coming from this university, with its devoted and skilled teachers, you've got a great start.